and welcome to my humble abode. It is time to talk about art. So can I open up right now? Can I be a little bit honest with you? I have at times felt almost guilty or ashamed about certain parts of my personality, particularly in the workplace. And that led to me kind of shrinking myself in a lot of ways so that I could be more likable or acceptable to other people. And what I've realized through the journey of becoming a working artist is a lot of these things that I've always felt a little bit weird about, like I was rejected by other people for, are actually the very attributes that make it really easy for me to succeed as a working artist. And today I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about signs that you are meant to be somewhere else, signs that your environment is not conducive for you as an artist. I think that the first step to building a creative career around being a working artist is first fixing the environment that you're currently in to make it natural for you to want to create. Welcome to a very long video series about art business, and art encouragement. Welcome, it is all right here. If you're new to this channel, hi, my name is Jen Carmiel. I'm a watercolor artist and illustrator, painting the small joys in life. I actually have an art drop coming on August 9th, so more details in the description. I know that one thing that happened for me when I started pursuing my career as a working artist is things started to line up and make sense for me. Once I decided on this career path for me, I was like, oh, that's why I started the Small Joys Club, because I love to write as well as draw. I was like, oh, that's why I always have these very big visionary ideas, because I'm supposed to build the castle that will become my art business. Today I just kind of wanted to break down the different things that made it clear to me that I'm supposed to be an artist. Just in the off chance that you might share some similarities and maybe help it become more clear to you that these attributes are not negatives, they are positives. They're kind of pushing you in a different direction. If it feels negative for you in your life to be these things, to be this way, it means that you're in the wrong environment. You would never blame a flower for not growing, right? You wouldn't blame the seed. You would move the seed into a better environment where it grows. And so if you ever feel like you are not properly growing, it's time to change your environment. I remember my very first day, on my own, sitting in my apartment on the first Monday morning that I had off in years. I had never known not being employed. And I found out very quickly that my ability to trust myself and trust my decisions was completely eroded. I didn't know what it was like to trust myself as I sat there at 26 years old in this new apartment that I had just moved to, because I moved twice within 3 months because of quitting my 9-to-5. And along with this self-trust, people don't realize that self-trust is one of the biggest factors of creativity. There's this famous audio that says you can't play if you're being careful. And so when it came to my creativity, I found that the environment that I was in for several years, I was just surrounding myself with people who did not value me. When I was working at my day job, I felt like my skills were very mismatched. For instance, I'm a very creative and expansive thinker, but my boss at my day job just did not want that from me. They did not like or want my creative thinking. Whenever I would function at my normal baseline, suggest ideas, try to start new projects, I would very frequently get shut down. And they would always ask me, why are you doing this? You don't need to be doing all of this. Because for me, whenever we encounter a problem, what is most natural for me is to look outside of myself for the most efficient way to solve that problem. But what's normal for non-expansive thinkers is to look within their current tool belt, within their current systems, for the solution that they already know that is going to solve the problem. But instead of looking within the system, I naturally look outside the system, and I look for the most efficient way to solve that problem, in the same way that I imagine a picture for a blank canvas. I'm grabbing images that do not exist, compositing them together to create whatever I want. I'm very creative in my thinking that way. But it turns out that the environment that I was in, they just did not want employees to have a vision of their own. They wanted people to just do whatever they say. People often feel good and safe about others who just follow their directions, they feel safe when they can predict what their team is going to do. And I get that. That made me an unpredictable factor for them. But for me, I would always know their end goal is my end goal at the end of the day, I would just be very abstract and creative about walking towards it. Because for me, it's not natural to blindly carry out a list of tasks. And I would also challenge existing systems. Like I would say, does it make sense what we're doing right now? Can we upgrade or improve this process in any way? Does this process leave anything out? How can we bridge the gap between where we are and where we want to be? And in a lot of corporate environments, this kind of thinking is often seen as problematic behavior, because to them, questioning a process means disagreeing with the boss or being challenging or not being a team player. And rarely will you find someone who enjoys being disagreed with in that way. It requires you to have like a lot of maturity and like self-assuredness. And when you are a creative spirit working around people who do not value your creativity, like that will slowly chip away at your ability to trust yourself and trust your instincts, because businesses don't want you to have instincts. They want you to be a good follower of rules. And I noticed over time that I had to shut down and silence that creative muscle of mine in order to be accepted into the workplace. In order to be seen as valuable to them, I needed to become agreeable rather than the expansive, challenging version of me that I really am. And you spend so much time at your day job, like you spend so many hours. It feels like you spend all your time there sometimes. And so when you spend almost all of your time in a job that requires you to be a smaller version of yourself, you end up just living in gray. And that was me, living in gray for several years. And I'm really curious to hear about your experience too. If you're a very creative person, like working out there in the workforce, what if I'm like going on this rant right now and everyone's sitting there like, girl, what are you talking about? And so when you repeat that over the course of several years, like my creative voice just died. It just died. Like it just said, bye, I'm out. It took so long of me just listening to empowering audiobooks like on repeat to remind myself that my creativity is a good thing. My expansiveness is a good thing. That there is an environment, there's a world, there's a life out there that allows me to be all of me. Not smaller versions, not cut up pieces of me, all of me in my total complete form, final form, like a superhero. I don't know what I'm saying here, Pokemon. You get what I mean, like just being yourself without having to adjust and change yourself to fit your environment. You should just find a new environment, because everything that they hated about my personality is what is required of me to succeed where I am right now. As a business owner, my ability to quickly troubleshoot and creatively solve the problems that are around me is what keeps everything moving, because I'm constantly in all these new environments. For instance, if I show up to a new art market and there's something that I don't anticipate, like the space being smaller than I expected it to be. One time I was placed on like an incline, so it was hard for me to set up my booth because I'm like, I'm kind of tilting here. Or what if I leave something at home? One time I left my sign at home that I used to write all of my prices on. I had to troubleshoot that. Or let's say a customer is unhappy with something, how you're going to troubleshoot that. One time someone requested a print made of an original that I did not have, and I said, oh, I'll mail it to you. I've had customers say, do you offer this one certain product? And I'm like, I don't, but I can. And then I go home and I make it. I'll watch all these YouTube videos on how to make it, and then I come back the next week with the product made. And it's that kind of like get it done, troubleshooter attitude about me that is so natural to me, that it allows me to be so prolific, and that allows me to truly succeed at what I'm doing now. And so if you ever feel like there's some part of you that is just not clicking with where you are, there's a huge chance that there is somewhere else out there that will value you exactly as you are. That they will say, oh my gosh, where have you been? All this time we've been waiting for someone just like you to show up. We've been waiting for you. And you really want to find yourself and plant your roots in those we have been waiting for you areas. It's not fair to you to continue to give away your creative life to environments that do not value your creativity. And there are environments out there that do value, even if you have to create your own environment, even if you have to plow the soil and make your garden yourself, like you owe it to yourself to give yourself like this amazing world for you to live in. Everything suddenly made sense because I was never the problem. My environment was the problem. And what I want you to know is everybody's life is different and unique and wonderful and beautiful and perfect and waiting. It is waiting for you. And when it finally arrives, you will be like, oh, That makes so much sense. It couldn't have been any other way. I don't know why I waited so long to see it, but this is right where I belong. The key to finding that life is getting really good at listening to your instincts and trusting those instincts rather than trying to quiet it down or say other people know better. It's really understanding that you do know what's best for yourself. Because before I quit my job, there were so many times when there was a little voice in my head saying, you're in the wrong place. This is not the place for you. And I kept giving myself reasons to stay, whether it was the coworkers that I liked there, whether it was the financial stability it offered me, but a paycheck is just a paycheck and you can get that anywhere. I ended up switching jobs like at several points within like a 6 months period while I was trying to find that place where I fit in that would allow me the financial security to pursue my art business. And I'm extremely, extremely fortunate to have found where I am now because I love the team. I love the people there. They're very kind, very sweet, very cool. I have a good time there. And it allows me the flexibility to work on what is important to me, which is my art. When I finally did leave my job and I tried my hand at trying to have this creative career for real, I experienced this like weird dissonance, like my old thought patterns coming back and back again, trying to hold me back from the life that I really wanted. My old thoughts said stuff like, you can't trust yourself. Your ideas won't work. Your ideas are too big. They're not realistic. What will other people think of you? And all of those thoughts are just things that other people had said to me that would have led me to living their life. So like essentially there's this book, I feel like I talk about it all the time, called Soundtracks by John Acuff, but essentially it has this concept of whenever you're thinking your thoughts to yourself, it's sort of like listening to music and you get to choose the music that you listen to, right? You can turn up music that you do like, turn down music that you don't like, and you have to be very conscious. So whenever these thoughts come, if they're not helpful or kind to you, you just got to turn it down like a volume knob. You just got to be like, I remember when I used to think that. Wasn't that a fun time for me? No, thank you. And you have to turn up a different thought, but turn up soundtracks that you do want to listen to that are helpful for your life. Sometimes I feel like this is why they call it a calling, right? Because it's almost like you can feel your new self asking you to come home to it. And the longer that you deny that request, saying, hey, walk a little bit closer towards me, the longer it will take you to get there in your journey. Sometimes we think about the time it takes to get somewhere as a deterrent, but for me, I try to think of it as how playful can we make this journey? How abundant and kind can we make this journey? How nice can it be to wander towards the life that you've always wanted? What friends can we make along the way? What can we learn along the way? It's like a very stop and smell the roses kind of mentality. You really just have to learn to be present with yourself and listen to your inner dialogue and be able to decipher like, oh, that's it. That is the new me. Like that's where I'm going. And be able to decipher the new me voice from the old me voice. Sometimes the way that I do this is ask myself, is this what a working artist would think? Whenever I think things like, oh, I'm being cringe right now on social media, would a working artist think that when they post? And the answer is no. They'd be like, this is my job. And so when I post on social media, I say, what would a working artist think? And then I would say, this is my job. You have to be able to let those thoughts that hold you back just bounce right off of you. Another thing that I do is I use the, oh, I remember when technique to kind of dismiss thoughts that I don't want to have anymore. So if I have a thought like, no one's going to buy from my next art sale, I can say things like, I remember when I used to think that. Isn't that so funny that I used to think that no one would want to buy my art? That's just so goofy of me. And I would just think those things. And then I would say, what would a working artist who does this professionally think? Would she think those things? They're not helpful, and it's not kind, and it's not true. Because ultimately, any amount of work that you put into your art business will pay off, will reward you. And it's important to understand that all feedback is necessary and neutral. So even when you do get those moments when the sales aren't coming in, that is interesting and good feedback for you to know. I remember one time I was talking with a friend. She said that she was at an art market one time and talking to a jewelry vendor, and she got a little sticker shocked at the jewelry vendor's prices, and she accidentally like said that like out loud. She's like, oh, like she visibly showed like that she was surprised at how expensive it was. And then she said, I felt really bad for doing that. And my response, and I don't know if this is going to be controversial, because obviously like everyone's labor and time is very valuable and important, and no one should feel bad for their prices. Your prices are right. Stick at it. But my response in that moment was, that's kind of valuable information for that artist to have, because if someone gets a little surprised at your prices whenever you're at a certain art market, that might be an indicator that the audience that attends that market is in the lower price point, and it might be worth it to you to look for markets where people don't think about prices that way. Because I've also noticed for myself, when I attend certain markets, like I expect certain prices to be in certain ranges, and so I don't see feedback as necessarily a bad thing. I just see it as direction. There's this quote that I like a lot that says, rejection is redirection. And so whenever you're building your art business and you feel like you're facing some amount of rejection, it's important to just understand that like it doesn't have to be a stop sign. It can just be an arrow sign, like pointing you in a different direction to go somewhere else, try something new. I remember I was even editing a video once and I thought to myself, no one's gonna like this. If I catch myself thinking things like that, I will say, ooh, not helpful, and I will write it down, and I will pin it to my wall. I have things pinned to my wall right now, and I write it under something that says limiting beliefs, and then I will replace it with a new thought, like my voice deserves to be heard regardless about what other people will think. What became more powerful than the lack of belief in myself was just the stubborn right and desire to be seen too. My entire life, it almost feels like I've made space for other people, but never really made room for me. And what a sad life that is, right? To like pass this life behind, never having let anyone know who I truly am, making the work that I love to make, being seen, and being seen in the way that I love to be seen. Being seen feels vulnerable, but it's not actually dangerous. And if you want to be exceptional, you have to be okay with being an exception to the rule. It can feel like you're being alienated sometimes, but it is honestly, at the end of the day, it can be very freeing. Sometimes it can feel isolating to pursue a career that most people won't understand, get, or support. But the more you can continue to show up for yourself, the more you'll find your way back to yourself. Try to imagine yourself as a young kid, the kid who didn't have to compare themselves to anyone yet. As you grow up, people kind of tell you who to be, a lot of times because they're afraid of your own power. They can be almost intimidated by the beauty, the light that you hold, because it kind of reveals to them that they are also living in a cage. And people just want the status quo, they want you to stay the same. And the world has a way of othering you when you don't fully fit in. I feel like all artists can kind of relate to feeling like they're living on the outskirts of common taste. That's why we end up creating the work that we do. We have this incredibly rich inner world where we feel like we're the only ones in the world who feel that way. And so when we put ourselves out there into the world, we do it just to hear one more voice that says, I feel like that too. I remember when I was first starting to answer the questions of how do I get money from my art? How do I create a business with my artwork? There was so much inner turmoil I had to deal with first before I could get there. I feel like it almost needs to be that way too, because any fixes that you can kind of make to get revenue from your artwork, it won't be fully like fulfilling if you haven't done the inner work first to decide what life you really want. When you skip this kind of stuff, you skip the fulfillment you can find in your journey. Because like I said, a paycheck can be found anywhere. You can get money anywhere in the world. And if you want to build yourself a life that brings money in abundance in through your own creativity, through your own channels, a lot of times that requires you to step up and become the version of yourself that you've always wanted to be. And it's really becoming that person that is the reward for you, not necessarily that thing that you thought that you've always wanted in your life. And another thing is, like, if you carefully plan out the version of your life that you want, sometimes you build it and then you realize you don't like it. And so for me, a much better goal is just becoming the version of yourself that really makes you happy to get up in the morning, that makes life more enjoyable for you, because the money can be found. We can work that out all day, every day. But when it comes to your happiness and fulfillment, that is going to be something that is a little more tricky. That takes a little more work. And for me, it's more of the priority that I live a happy, fulfilled life, whatever that means for me, than if I get that like trophy at the top of the mountain that I can tell everybody that I'm a full-time whatever. I try not to worry so much about what it will mean one day to get wherever I'm going, and more focus on the very next step, because if you look farther than that, you're going to get lost, and I don't want that for you. I want you to be happy. Anyway, that was just a little rant today about me and my own artistic journey and some of my favorite takeaways from it. I usually script out my videos like more thoroughly than this, but today I just said I'm gonna hop on here and just chat. So let me know if you like the chatty style or if you like a more structured video. You tell me. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like. Give it a like. And subscribe, because, you know, we gotta feed the algorithm, get the algorithm what it wants. I do have an art drop coming up August 9th, so if you're watching this in the future, there may still be some paintings left over, but hopefully they'll all be snatched up. It is my biggest art drop yet in the last year, and I'm very excited for a lot of these paintings that are going to be coming out. It's called Storybook, and the painting series is inspired by essentially all of the stories that we tell ourselves in our head about who others are, who we are, and who the world is, and what all of it means to us. When we tell ourselves these stories, we give these stories power to define the course of our lives. And so these paintings are just little pages from a storybook that are from the favorite book of my life, where the things that I feel like are the best reminders to keep me on the right track. For me, I paint cats as a symbol of knowing yourself and knowing your boundaries. And for me, roses and florals are all about like noticing the beauty where it exists before it's gone. And so that's sort of what this series is all about. I will have art prints and greeting cards too, so hope to see you there. As always, spending any amount of time here on this channel with me is a gift. I really do consider it a gift, and for that, this humble artist says thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh man, I'm so sleepy. I'm so sleepy. I thought I was gonna film 2 videos today because sometimes I film them back to back. But I'm just a sleepy girl. I'm probably not gonna film 2 videos. I'm gonna show you a work in progress painting that I'm trying so hard to make right now. I don't even know what's happening here. What do we think? Is it savable?